everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel. And before we get into it, some interesting things have come to light. So I'm recording this on Monday. This goes up on Tuesday. And here's kind of what happened, right? So from last week, we here in Israel, Jews around the world, we've heard of this poor, unfortunate Jew who is in Iran. There's about 8,000 of them there. Who was on trial for murder, and he was kangaroo court, right? He was basically going to be executed, right? So what was the story behind this? He loaned money to a Persian guy, to a Muslim, and when he came to collect his money, the guy started attacking him, and he killed him in self-defense, but, because he's a Jew, now we have to hang him. He was supposed to be executed today. What happened today? What confirmation did we get today? The confirmation that the hangman of Tehran had been killed himself in a helicopter crash, no less, from an American chopper sometime before, that was built before 1979, up until they decided to become nuts. You see how God turned that around? It wasn't a missile that shot him down or anything. God said, I will do this. Ani velo malach, ani velo saraf. Me personally, I'm going to take your people out. What else did I just read right now? A few minutes before I started recording this, that the world courts in The Hague are now issuing arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu, for Gallant, for Sinwar, and Sinwar's number 2 guy. Now, here's the funny thing, right? Everybody's guilty of war crimes. Okay, so here's the funny thing, right? What happened on October the 7th? What came before that, the precursor to that, was the Gilad Shalit deal, right? A bunch of years ago, as you guys know, Gilad Shalit was kidnapped from an army base. He was a soldier, and they got through the base. They killed a bunch of dudes, and they kidnapped him. Now he was in Gaza, in Hamas's hands for about 5 years, while not all, but a lot of the country were going crazy. We were saying, give them what they want, release the hostage. Now, we know that's never smart business. Why was it never smart business? Because Israel released, and who's the one that released them? It was Benjamin Netanyahu, right? The pressure came from all the same people that are causing now the protests. Same side. It was primarily from the left, not from the right. Why? Because what Hamas wanted in order to release one of our soldiers, just one, right? Over 11 or 1,200 murderers that were in our prisons, as in murders, they have Jewish blood on their hands. They murdered people. One of them was Yehia Sinwar, and in other words, the mastermind behind what happened on October 7th, who is currently still running around like a rat in his tunnels in Gaza. So Bibi released him along with another 1,200 of his murderous cohorts for this one soldier. Terrible deal. And as they're going out, they're being releases saying, yep, we're going to do this again. And behold, and you see what's happening right now. So if we took one guy and we could get all this, imagine what we can do if we catch dozens, maybe even hundreds. Who knows? The sky's the limit, right? So justice comes for all. So right now, the mastermind of October 7th is having, again, how serious can we take the courts in The Hague, right? Everything is corrupt. Nevertheless, look how funny this is. The guy that the mastermind, the leader of Hamas, who orchestrated the 7th of October attacks in Israel, has a warrant for his arrest. In other words, if he gets caught in international land or whatever, they take him away. And the guy who released him, Benjamin Netanyahu, our clown in office, also same status. They don't care. I call this almost poetic justice. It is really, really beautiful. So this is what is happening in the world and in Israel today. I know that myself and my wife and our friends and many of the Jews here in Israel were saying Tehillim for this Iranian Jew that he should not be executed. And we heard a day before. We heard just yesterday that they postponed his trial or his execution date by 1 month. In other words, really it was supposed to happen today, but they postponed it by 1 month. And in the end, the president of Iran, the 350 missiles that came over here the other day, he was taken out, mamash, by an act of God. So good things to come, I guess, right? Justice. All we could say is Baruch Hashem, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, right? Blessed is he who is a righteous judge for whatever, wherever, however. We don't know. We just know that God's on it. And so, without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? This class, as all the teachings that we do, is dedicated to the safety and security of our brave soldiers who are on the front lines, who are in the thick of it over there, and for the safe return of the hostages, and for the safety and the security of all of Israel. Amen. So we continue with the golden calf. This one is called Your People. And we're going to start with the Tehillim. Hallelujah Adonai kol goyim, shabechu kol haomim, ki gavar alenu chasdo, ve'emet Adonai le'olam. Hallelujah. So last week we left off at the very inception of the golden calf, as Aaron tossed the gold plate into the fire with the name of God written upon it, with the image of an ox engraved on it. When the calf emerges from the fire, it started mooing and screaming as all Israel watched. Rabbi Yehuda said, Satan entered into the calf as it was mooing in order to deceive Israel. As said in Isaiah 1:3, an ox knows its owner. Yada shol konehu, v'chamor avus be'alav, and a donkey his master's crib. So, the sin of the golden calf is likened to the sin of the Garden of Eden in many, many ways, okay? I listed 6 over here. So 1, in Genesis, after his creation and before the sin, Adam was at his spiritual peak. In Exodus, after receiving the 10 commandments and before the incident of the golden calf, Israel were at their spiritual peak. 2, in Genesis, Adam's ex-wife and current wife of Satan appeared as a serpent to entice and to deceive. In Exodus, Satan appeared as the calf to entice and to deceive. 3, in Genesis, all Adam had to do was to wait until Shabbat came in. In Exodus, all Israel had to do was wait until Moses returned with the tablets. 4, in Genesis, death had not yet entered into the world. In Exodus, after the commandments and before the calf, death was suspended from the world. 5, in Genesis and after the sin, Adam was forced to remove his garments of light. Kutnot or, Aleph Vav Resh is kutonet, is garments of Aleph Vav Resh that was light, and he received kutnot or. Phonetically it sounds the same, but it's with an Ain Vav Resh. Or, garments of skin, and also within there backwards is roa. Roa is evil, right? Okay. And in Exodus, Israel were forced to remove the adi that were given, as said in Exodus 33:6. Vaitnatzlu bnei Israel et ediyam mehar chorev, and the children of Israel, what does it say here? Divested themselves of their finery from Mount Horeb. So that finery was ediyam. It's called adi. It was a very special mark, if you will, that kind of elevated them. It was a very spiritual kind of garment kind of given to them at that point. 6, and finally, what is the direct correlation between Adam and Israel? Israel is the only nation to be called Adam, as said in Ezekiel 34:31. ואתן צאני צאן מרעיתי אדם אתם, אני אלוהיכם נאום אדוני אלוהים, and you are my flock. You are my flocks, the flock of my pasture. You are Adam. Adam atem. It didn't say ish. Adam atem. You are Adam. I am your God, says the Lord God. So you see, this event was supposed to be a tikkun, a rectification for the sin in the garden. They got up to the same place that Adam was before the sin, right? And from that point, we just have to move higher, elevating us to that same level, so that we could continuously ascend from that point onward. And regarding the verse in Isaiah 1:3 where it says an ox knows his owner, the owner of this ox, as well as the events that led up to it, is none other than Satan himself. So if you read about this event, for instance, in the Midrash, you will see that it wasn't as simple as most people imagine it was, right? As we discussed in last class, Aaron did not fashion this idol, but rather it emerged from the fire as a calf. Small at first, but then it began to grow. And what was it going to grow into? A full-grown ox, right? Just as it was depicted on the golden plate. The moment Aaron saw this is when he built an altar of earth on the spot. He just collected earth and he started putting together, right? And he called it a holy day for God tomorrow, Yom Lashem Machar. And this was what stunted the growth of the baby cow, of the calf, of the idol, because its power and intent was focused where it could not go, so it remained as a calf. And this calf was very much alive, mooing in all directions. As said in Psalms 106:20, they exchanged their glory for the likeness of an ox, eating grass. Oh yes, ochel esev, eating weeds, grass. David said so this was no joke. Now, I found something very interesting over Shabbat, okay? Not that I was looking for anything specific on this topic. I was in the middle of writing the draft, not on Shabbat. Yes, I was reading on Shabbat. But whenever we happen upon something that can give us more understanding of Torah, particularly if it's a topic that we are currently studying or teaching on, we say Baruch Hashem, because it all comes from God. So who am I not to share this with you? Okay, so this is from Rabbi Avraham Azulai, the incredible Moroccan Kabbalist who lived around 450 years ago. He said, "We already know that the Erev Rav were the ones who were responsible for the golden calf. And the heads of the Erev Rav were Yanis and Yambris, the two sons of Bilam the wicked. They were the ones who sought counsel, and they were the ones who threw the gold plate into the fire. You must know what their purpose was for doing so and how they would benefit from this. We already know that Bilam was the filth of the infestation, the worst of the worst. There is the infestation and then there is the filth of the infestation. Think of a garbage bag, right? The juice on the bottom. That's Bilam. Okay. And he came from where? He came from the Sephira of Da'at, knowledge, the root of Moses. In other words, the filth of Da'at, that's where he came from. The root of Moses, as said in Numbers 24:15-16. He took up his parable and said, the word of Bilam, son of Beor, the word of a man with an open eye. The word of the one who hears God's sayings. By the way, just the English you will not get it here. I'll read it to you in English, but you'll get the point. The word of the one who hears God's sayings and perceives the thoughts of the Most High, who sees the vision of the Almighty, fallen yet with open eyes. So Bilam, like we said, he was equivalent to Moses when it came to prophecy and abilities, but from the complete opposite end. What does it say in Hebrew? Ne'um shomea imre el veyodea Da'at Elyon. What is Da'at Elyon? Da'at, right? Knowing supernal Da'at, supernal knowledge. This is Bilam. Okay, so we get that. And the Erev Rav are also the secret of the filth of the supernal Da'at, right? And you're going to love this. Erev Rav and Da'at have the same numerical value. But the rest of the Erev Rav were not as bad as Bilam. Excuse me. Now, don't get me wrong, neither have a future, right? But Bilam was absolutely the worst of the worst. You should know, he says, that Lavan, remember Lavan, right? Lavan and Bilam and Beor, who is Beor, Lavan's son and Bilam's father, are all from the same root. After Lavan begot Beor by the merit of Jacob. How is this by the merit of Jacob? Remember when Lavan was chasing down Jacob and he says, listen, the Lord has blessed me because of you. We already discussed this topic, right? The Lord has blessed me because of you. How did he bless him? In addition to riches, with sons. Lavan only had 4 daughters. Rachel and Leah, they were twins, and he also had Bilhah and Zilpah, which were two other daughters of his from other concubines. So essentially, Jacob married four sisters, two like full sisters and then two other half sisters. So by the merit of Jacob being there, Lavan begot Beor. Beor begot Bilam. Bilam begot Yanis and Yambres. Okay? So after Lavan begot Beor on the merit of Jacob, after his death, he reincarnated. Lavan reincarnated into Bilam, and they were all great sorcerers and idolaters. Now, like I said, we covered this topic many times as far as Lavan arguably being even a greater sorcerer than Bilam. And the soul of Beor, the father of Bilam, would reincarnate into where? Into a plant, greenery, plant life. And he would keep on reincarnating into plant life. Okay? There are 4 levels of reincarnation. Okay? The lowest form, if someone really was just bad, they will reincarnate into an inanimate object like a rock or dust or dirt or sand, something like that. Okay? The next level above that is plant life, a tree, a bush, a fruit, or anything, grass, whatever. The next level on top of that is into an animal, any animal, and finally, the last reincarnation is into man, into human being. So one cannot skip levels coming back. In other words, if you're on this level and somehow you get a tikkun through there, then you can elevate, you could graduate from being a rock to being like a bush. And then you can graduate from being a bush to being a rabbit. Okay? And then from rabbit to human being. But it takes a while. It's not just year after year. We're talking about centuries over here until your tikkun is complete. Okay? So one cannot skip levels coming back, and you're going to understand the concept in a moment. So the soul of Beor, the father of Bilam, would keep reincarnating into a plant and could not get out of that cycle. And so his grandchildren, Yanis and Yambres, wanted to get him out of there, as did the rest of the Erev Rav from the same supernal root. By causing Israel to sin, thereby weakening Israel, would cause the Klippa to grow strong enough to allow them to release their ancestor. This is why they threw the gold plate into the fire with the ox on it, in order to infuse Beor's soul within it, giving the idol consciousness, so he would then lead them, all through their magic. And this is when the calf came out screaming from the fire, saying, I am the Lord your God, as we could read in Exodus 32:4. He took them from their hands, fashioned it with an engraved tool, and made it into a molten calf, upon which they said, These are your gods, O Israel, who have brought you up from the land of from Egypt. And this is why they were feeding its grass, because Beor was trapped therein, and now it would be transferred and upgraded into a calf. As we read in Psalms 106:20, they exchanged their glory for the likeness of an ox eating grass. So what does this have to do? The topic that I was actually reading, that this was written in there, is that why do we say blessings on the food? Because we don't know what souls are trapped in those reincarnations. So that's why if a person gets reincarnated into a plant, into a grass or something like that, how does their cycle end if that grass is, let's say, eaten by an animal, right? But it doesn't end there. How does that soul now get elevated? If that animal hopefully is a kosher animal, and if that kosher animal somehow ends up on the plate of a God-fearing Jew, and that God-fearing Jew gives the animal a kosher shechting, right? Still doesn't release the soul, right? It's still in there. But when the Jew eats that meat, the kosher meat, and he blesses God for this food, that is when not only does the spirit of the animal, the nefesh of the behemah, elevate, but also the neshama, the higher soul of the human being that is caught in there as a form of a rectification gets released as well. That's how it works. That's why we say brachot, because you don't know who you're releasing or who you're not releasing in there. And in most cases, Jews get, if it gets to that point, get reincarnated into kosher animals. And that's why this guy says that is why it is our obligation to eat meat. Ta-da! That's why the korbanot are there. Meat, animals, to elevate all living beings. Okay, good stuff. This is fascinating, I thought. And those were the words of Rabbi Avraham Ozulai. So let's continue. But who is the one who infused it with its original power? In other words, the power to start growing before they started feeding it grass, right? Like we said, it was Satan. And where was Satan at this time? It says sitting between its horns. Why there? Why do you think? Why would Satan be between the horns of a bull, of an ox? Because this is the place where the animal can cause the most harm. Makes sense, right? The place of its true power. Same with the serpent. Where did its power lie? In its tongue, or the split tongue to be exact. Today, it still is the mouth. And where would Satan hang out in the person today? What would you say, right? In our arms, in our hands, by which we wage war and cause destruction? Or maybe in our legs who carry us to places that are unholy. Ritzat raglaim lehara. It's one of the things that we ask God for forgiveness. Please, God, forgive me for using my legs and my feet to run, to do, shtuyot, craziness. Did you know there's a verse in Psalms that is ascribed to Satan? This is very interesting. Psalms 125, a song of ascent. In my distress I called to the Lord, and he answered me. Lord, save my soul from false lips, from a deceitful tongue. Okay, David is recognizing false lips, deceitful tongue. The worst. David cries out to God for protection from the most destructive power that man can wield. False lips, external, deceitful tongue, hidden and internal. That's why God, the tongue is hidden behind two barriers. The teeth and the lip. And that's why our tongue, the two barriers. And it is the most powerful tool in our arsenal, as it can shake the heavens, and also it can destroy the whole world. Everything is the power of speech. That's where prayer comes from. And the next verse, verse 3, this is where the deceiver comes in. Listen carefully to what he says. Ma yiten lach, u'ma yosif lach lashon remiyah. What can it give you? And what can it add to you? A deceitful tongue. Pretty self-explanatory. No? Yes? I'm not going to even add on this. Concluding with the words of King Solomon from Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the hand of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its produce. Why the hand of the tongue and not just the tongue? Because we know that the power of the tongue, the power of speech, extends far beyond its physical reach. It is the very power that God has given us to rectify the world, as it is said in Genesis 27:22. So Jacob drew near to Isaac his father, and he felt him, and he said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands of Esau, the Edomites, and the rest of the Western world, their power lies within their contraptions, within their hands. Our power, which can crush them, lies within our mouths. Let the physical strength, the war, the bloodshed, and the covetousness remain for Esau in this world, for he has no share in the world to come. But as for you, Jacob, your strength lies not with matters of this world, but the gift that you have been given to call upon the God of your fathers, the master of the universe. And to emphasize this point, we have the blessing of Moses before his death to Judah, knowing full well that he would remain faithful and standing until the end. Jews, right? As said in Deuteronomy 33:7, may this also be for Judah. What do we say also? Because it came after the blessing of Reuven. Moses blessed Reuben, saying, may Reuben live and not die. So also this for Judah. And he, Moses said, right? So that's why we're still here. O Lord, hearken to Judah's voice and bring him to his people. May his hands do battle for him. Answer my voice, and your hands will do battle and be successful. And may his hands do battle for him, and may you be a help against his adversaries. Beautiful. Everything we say matters. It's all recorded. Don't waste it. Use your gift for good. As the prophet Isaiah said in 55:6, seek the Lord when he is found. Call him when he is near. Do it now. Okay, so we understand this. Let's continue. And all Israel saw it, the calf, and they kissed it, and they bowed down to it, and they gave it offerings. Now there's a hint in the verse that we read earlier from Isaiah 1:3. An ox knows his owner, and a donkey his master's crib, right? In the first 4 words of the verse, in Hebrew, Yadashol koneu vachamo, an ox knows its owner and a donkey. Those are the first 4 words in Hebrew. The first letter of the first 4 words spells out yishako, kissed. And there's another reference regarding kissing the calf, or in this case, the calves, plural, in Hosea chapter 13, which is speaking of the works of Yerovam, right? We already know him by now, I hope so, as he could have been Messiah, son of Joseph, of his generation, from the tribe of Ephraim. Regarding the golden calves that he made in Israel later on, again, there were several. When Ephraim spoke with trembling, he became exalted in Israel. When he became guilty through Baal, he died. Verse 2, and now they continue to sin, and they have made for themselves a molten image from their silver, according to their pattern, deities of all the work of the craftsmen. To them say, those who sacrifice man may kiss the calves. Kill a man, kiss the calves. And not surprisingly, this is the same language by which they received from Moses their judgment. Exodus 32:20. Then he took the calf that they made, burnt it in fire, ground it to fine powder, scattered it upon the surface of the water, and gave it to the children of Israel to drink. And when they drank all those who kissed the golden calf, their lips would be filled with gold dust. We will discuss this already in next teaching. But meaning, they were betrayed by the very sin that they committed and by the body part by which they committed that sin. Oh yes, this is God's midah keneged midah, perfect judgment right here. And this is also important to note. This is how we are all going to be judged after we die. Every body part, of yours, according to how you sinned, will pay the price according to its sin. So the fact that they kissed this idol with the same lips that they then reserved for God, even beforehand, right? The same lips that said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and then we will hear. The same lips that were used to cry out to God, who then saved them, right? These are the lips by which you kiss the idol. Amen. Obviously, we know it wasn't all of Israel, a very select few. Next time. The Holy One, blessed be he, said to Moses, Moses, Israel forgot the power of my might, which I did for them in Egypt and in Yam Suf. As we can read in Psalms 106, 21-22, they forgot their God, their Savior. They forgot God, their Savior, who wrought great deeds in Egypt, wonders in the land of Ham, which is Africa, Egypt, awesome deeds on the Sea of Reeds, Al Yam Suf. And look at the next verse. He intended to destroy them were it not that Moses, his chosen one, stood before him in the breach to return his wrath from destroying. The Holy One, blessed be he, continued to speak to Moses, saying, and they created for themselves idols, that's said in Exodus 32:7. And the Lord said to Moses, go, descend, for your people that you have brought up from the land of Egypt have acted corruptly. When God told Moses, go, descend, for your people have corrupted, he was saying, go and descend from your greatness. You have no idea. The level that Moses was on after this was still the highest any human being has ever been. Ever. Still, he could have ended the world if he wanted, but he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything that was not according to God's plan, obviously. But think about the level that he was on beforehand. He had a fraction of what he was before, and Israel were also a fraction of what they were before. So we've been through the question of how could God call Moses people when God himself said that he is a jealous God and Israel are his people. What do you mean, your people, Moses, right? The short answer is that Moses' people were the Erev Rav. Why were they his people? Because Moses wanted to redeem them as well. But God told him that they are unredeemable and they would only cause corruption and destruction, which they have and continue to do so till this very day. And since it was Moses who vouched for them, it was he who bore the responsibility of their deeds, because Israel fell. God did not make Moses great for the Erev Rav's sake, but only for Israel's sake. And now, since the Erev Rav did what they did, and Israel were demoted as a result, falling from greatness, then so too should the man who is responsible for their well-being, the faithful shepherd, he goes with the sheep, right? Fall from his level as well, if not to be closer to his people. Moses didn't sin. It's not about that. That's not what leadership is. What can we learn from this? That the leader of Israel must never be too far away from Israel. We're not only talking about in physical proximity, okay? As an anointed of God, whoever it may be, from the prophets to the kings to the sages, they should by default be the best of the people, the best of them, right? In order to lead them, but not so far above them that they cannot be relatable. Otherwise, what's the point? And this is why our sages say that Mashiach ben David is going to be a Baal Tshuva, one who lived their life away from God, away from Torah, and came back. A person who lived a normal to subpar life, let's say, with enough sin in them in order to be able to come back from something, as tshuva is part of the fulfillment of the Torah. You can't fulfill the Torah if there's no tshuva within what it is that you do. So if a person never needs to repent for anything, then by default, they cannot keep God's word. Do you know any perfect human beings? And it's not like we have to go out of our way to sin right now, right? This is something that can happen on a daily basis, on the regular, as the size of the sin varies also. For this reason, we say vidui, confession, at the end of every day. And before we go to sleep, before Shema Yisrael, after the Shema, we beat our chest and we say all the things that go through our day. What do? I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that. Oh my goodness, I did this, I did that. Every single day, because we sin every single day. You don't even know, but even your thoughts can betray you. That's what we're saying. Take responsibility, even for what happens subconsciously. We also need to take responsibility for our dreams. Did you know that? If you have a bad dream, a terrible, terrible dream, there's a process of what you need to do, okay? If you're a Jew. Mashiach has to come from his own sins so he could inspire others to leave theirs, thereby making him relatable to even the lowest of the low, because Mashiach is every man, as his soul is connected to all the souls of Israel. Like we said so many times before, the public do not relate to flawless characters. They reject them. See all the propaganda in Hollywood today. Flawless, strong, independent females who don't need no man, right? How's the box office doing? You want to go with like a fact numbers game? They speak for themselves. How's the hype and the following coming along? Terrible. No one likes all this garbage that they're putting out right now. But when were we actually engaged in the stories we were once told? When the character, the hero, is just a regular dude, again, going back to your classic Luke Skywalker, a whiny little brat, and when you get the power converters, right? Okay, who tried and fought and fell and tried again and again, never giving up, being rooted for by the entire world at the time. Everybody wanted to be Luke Skywalker because we all saw ourselves in him in one way or another. It's just the dude who is a moisture farm. And through personal sacrifice, suffering, loss, he led the people to freedom and saved the galaxy. Oh, that being said, we may have a bit of an idea of the greatness of Moses, and that should tell you about how great Israel were at the time as well, despite falling. In fact, that's what made them stronger. Every time they fell, they came back better, stronger, and more focused on the task at hand. Look what happened after the golden calf, how they were when it came to giving from themselves to the Mishkan. Within 2 days, they got everything from the Mishkan. Moses had to say, stop. They didn't want to stop giving because they learned, even if all of them were not guilty. Moses then said, Master of the universe, until they sinned before you, you would call them my people, as said in Exodus 7:4. But Pharaoh will not hearken to you, and I will lay my hand upon the Egyptians, and I will take my legions, my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt with great judgments. Who are God's legions in here, right? Because there's two different, actually there's three different groups, but again, this breaks down into two. My people, the children of Israel, that's one, and my legions, before that, something else. Were they not his people, the children of Israel? I looked up Rabbeinu Bachye on this verse, so let's see what he says, okay? Because I found this very interesting. Now, I've seen this before, but here you go. I will take my legions, okay? What does he say about that? The text called Israel his legions because they parallel the supernal legions, which are the 12 upper tribes corresponding to the zodiac, the mazalot. And they were likened to the stars, as said in Deuteronomy, as is said in Deuteronomy 1:10. The Lord your God has multiplied you, and behold, you are today, still in the wilderness, today as the stars of the heavens in abundance. Meaning, were the number of Israel equal to the number of stars? No, because it wasn't about the number. It was about the value, larov, greatness, abundance, just like we read over here. So it's the value. What is the value of a Jewish life? It's equal to all of existence, all of reality. You understand? And furthermore, he is hinting towards the supernal legions, meaning that God took out his supernal legions with his terrestrial legions. Israel, as it is said in the Mechilta or Yalkut Shimoni, when Israel were in exile in Egypt, the Shekhinah was with them. As we know from Jacob, when Jacob prayed to God before he descended to Egypt, God said, Yaakov, Yaakov, don't you worry, I'm going to go down there with you, ve'elecha gamalo, and I will surely come up with you from there. So the Shekhinah was with them all the time, as the Shekhinah is right now with every single Jew in the Galut, even here in the land of Israel, because just because we are in the land of Israel, it does not mean we are not in the Galut. So long as the temple is not built, we're in exile, end of story. Okay. So like we said, so when Israel left Egypt, the supernal legions of God, who were trapped and exiled with them in Egypt, were released as well. And we can see this in Psalms 122. A song of ascent of David, I rejoice when they said, when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. At this point, there was no house of the Lord. Remember, David didn't build it. It was Solomon. Our feet were standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. The built-up Jerusalem, the completed Jerusalem, is like a city that was joined together within itself. Upper and lower, there is a supernal Jerusalem. There's a supernal Israel. There's a supernal 12 tribes. There ascended the tribes of God, it says, Shiftei Yah, the tribes of Yah, testimony to Israel, lower, to give thanks to the name of the Lord. For there were set thrones of judgment, thrones for the house of David. The four-letter name of God corresponds with the Sfirot. That's why we have Yud, and then we have Hey, which is male, female, father and mother, Chokhmah and Binah. And then we have Vav, Zeir Anpin, and then we have the Hey, which is Malchut. So the two upper ones, that's whenever we say Hallelujah, praise Yah, the supernal over there. There are different levels of these things, whole nother teaching, but you get the idea. Okay, so there's a spiritual correlation and a counterpart to everything in this physical world. Everything. Every blade of grass down here, there's a counterpart up there. It doesn't look like grass, okay? We don't look the same. Different spiritual beings. It is our spiritual essence. So, back to our text. Moses then said, Master of the universe, until they sin before you, you would call them my people. But now, because they sin before you, you say to me, go descend, for your people have corrupted. They are your people and your inheritance, as said in Deuteronomy 9:29. But they are your people and your inheritance, which you brought out with your great strength and with your outstretched arm. They are yours, God. What Moses is wisely doing here, though, he's making a separation between the Erev Rav, Moses' people, and Israel, God's people. Make no mistake, Moses was leading God's people, absolutely. But he did want to redeem the Erev Rav. He told them, he told God, listen, when they see all your miracles and everything that you're going to do, they'll come around. But what do we know? We know that at the end of the day, really, people couldn't care less about miracles. It says in Deuteronomy, if somebody starts doing any kind of miracles and, water into wine and whatnot, who cares? Because really, if we knew how to do it, everybody could do it. Like we said, the Baba Sali used to do it even 30 years ago on camera. YouTube it, Google it. And the Ashkenaz rabbis would say, dude, you're making everybody else look bad. He goes, what's the problem? We're children of Israel. We could all do this. It's not a big deal. So we don't care about miracles, okay? Someone comes and flies like this. We're not impressed by it. We need tachlis. If you go according to the Torah, now we're talking. But if you change anything, we know exactly what route you come from. So this is what's happening now. Slowly and painfully among Israel, there is sort of a separation is starting to be made between true Israel and the Erev Rav. To separate the Erev Rav from within our ranks is like separating cotton from a thorn bush, okay? You have to rip the cotton to shreds, and yes, we're the cotton. This goes to show us that most of Israel are good, but today we have the vocal minority of the Erev Rav that are running things in Israel, as it said in the Zohar, right? All the Erev Rav are going to be leading Israel in the final generation. And as our sages say, the Erev Rav is more difficult for Israel than even the nations. And this we can see, right? When our government have been making decisions that benefit our enemies, you know what that is. Like, I don't know, giving now fuel, aid, electricity, medicine in the form of hundreds of tons on a daily basis to our enemies, while our enemies are firing upon us, holding our people captive, firing rockets upon us. That's an Erev Rav move right there, okay? It's something so stupid, so ridiculous, so blatantly unapologetic, in your face, so what you gonna do about it, that you feel like you're taking crazy pills. This is the Erev Rav. And that's our class for today. So stick around for next week of our conclusion of the Golden Calf. And as always, listen, we live in a great time right now. It's kind of exciting to see what comes next. We know crazy things are going to happen. We already know because from all our books, we see what's happening. We see what's going to happen. So really, at the end of the day, no fear. But if you're a Jew out there, probably want to come to Israel as soon as possible. So anyway, thank you guys, as always, for joining me every week, in and out, your patience and all this stuff. I really do appreciate this. I could not be doing this without you. Yeah, have a great week. Have Shabbat Shalom. Be safe. And God willing, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.